two lines that meet in a single point. We can have two lines that never meet, or yeah, I could give you basically a system with the same line and then it's every point on the line. So those were our options. We either had infinite, one, or no solutions. If we're talking about nonlinear systems, that just means that at least one of the equations is not a line. So it could be two that are not lines, it could just be one. So the number of solutions really varies depending on the situation. For instance, if I were talking about like a parabola and a line, it's possible to have a parabola and a line that never meet. It's possible to have a parabola and a line that meet once, or a parabola and a line that meet twice. If I were talking about like a cubic function and a line, so cubic, something like this, you could have a line that crossed that thing 3 different times, right? Or if I talked about a cubic and a parabola, we could get a lot more solutions. So on this one, there's no clear-cut number of solutions we should expect when we start. It really just depends on what the functions are, you know, what type of functions, and then there's different options for how many times they meet. So we're looking for all the different solutions. So let's say I gave you this system. Now, we could have like some inkling of how many solutions we might get. What's x squared plus y equals 7? What kind of function is that? That's a quadratic. So we have a parabola. X plus y equals 1. That's a linear. It's a line. So a parabola and a line could meet at most how many times? 2. So we can have 0, 1, or 2 solutions. Now we just have to solve it. We're going to use our same options, substitution and elimination. So you pick what you want. What do you guys think? Elimination. So we essentially have 3 things here. We have an x, we have a y, and we have an x squared. We need to eliminate the one that's different. Yeah. Well, I wouldn't eliminate the x squared because then we still have the x and y. It would be easier to eliminate the y because then we have an x and an x squared, so then it's like something we could factor. So you basically want the same variable, but it's okay to have multiple exponents with it. So if I take this times -1, we have x squared plus y equals 7, and negative x minus y equals -1. When I add those, x squared minus x, those are not like terms, so we just keep it. Positive y and negative y cancel, equals 6. Quadratics, we always set equal to, so we have x squared minus x minus 6 equals 0. Then how would that factor? So if we set those equal to 0, if x minus 3 equals 0, we get, and if x plus 2 equals 0, but we're not done. What do I need to do now? So I have to put both of these back into one of the originals to find my y. So let's say I went with the second one. So it's x plus y equals 1. So y is -2. So the first point is positive 3, -2. If x is -2, -2 plus y equals 1. So then I get y equals 3. So the second point is -2, 3.
Is that always going to play out like that?
No,
Okay.
just coincidence. Questions there? Let's try another one. So we have to either use substitution or elimination to solve this. Yeah, these graphs are a little bit different. Do you guys know what x squared plus y squared equals 4 is? It actually turns out to be a circle.
Oh.
But the 2x squared minus y squared equals 8 is more like this. And so we could have, depending on where our circle lies, we might have no solutions, we might have 2 solutions, or we could get 4 solutions. So we just have to be prepared as we go through for multiple solutions here. But if I want to eliminate, it's pretty easy to eliminate the y squared already. If I just add these together, x squared plus 2x squared is 3x squared. Those cancel. Equals 12. Divide by 3. So then if we square root plus and minus, we get x to be positive and negative 2. So we have to put both of those back in. If I put in a 2, if I just go to the first one, 2 squared is 4, plus y squared equals 4. So y squared equals 0. Square root plus or minus, but plus or minus 0 is just 0. 2, 0. We put in negative 2. Negative 2 squared is still 4. Plus y squared equals 4. So we again get y equals 0. How would you check this if you weren't sure? You could graph it and look at the intersection. To graph these on our graphing calculators is slightly complex because you would have to get the y by itself. And in doing that, you would do a square root and a plus and minus. So for each of those, you would actually have 2 separate equations to enter on your graphing calculator, but you get it. We can also plug these points back in. 2 squared plus 0 squared is 4. 2 times 2 squared, so that would be 8, minus 0 is 8. And you'll plug them both into both equations to verify. All right, let's do some more challenging ones.
It's a bumpy circle.
It's a bumpy circle.
I don't know exactly where I'm heading with this.
Okay. So in this one, we have x's and y's. We have x squared, we have y squared, we have x times y. Any thoughts?
I would go ahead and multiply the bottom by 3 so you can get rid of that x.
Okay. So how about
Would you-
just for a moment, like don't write down, just sit and let's talk them together. So if we did that. Then we have 3x squared minus 3xy plus 3y squared equals 18. So if we add, we get 4x squared plus 4y squared equals 40. So we're in better shape because I don't have the x squared and the y, or I don't have the xy, but I still have x squared and y squared. Can I solve that for anything? No. So now I'm kind of stuck. If I want to be able to solve it, if you have 2 variables, you have to have 2 equations, but I only have 1. So it got rid of something, but not enough because now I'm stuck.
Would you want to multiply everything by -1 instead?
Okay, let's try that. So sometimes when you have these non-linear ones, you may not get the right thing the first time. So we may try several things. So canceling the xy didn't help. So if I do this, I have a negative x squared plus xy minus y squared equals negative 6. So now the x squared canceled, like 4xy. The y squared cancels, equals 16. So that time we got rid of x squared and y squared. Okay, we can divide by 4.
Or could you also like divide by 4 and a variable?
Okay, how would that help me?
It would give one variable on one side.
So if you divide by x, then y is 4 divided by x. Now what could I do with that?
No.
I think we're on the right track. I'll give you guys a second to write this down. Okay. If we take this, we started out doing an elimination, and we eliminated the x squared and y squared. But now I know what y is equal to. So could we go back and substitute that into one of these equations? Okay, it doesn't matter which one. I highlighted the first, but do you guys have a preference? Okay. So if I go with that, we have x squared plus 3x times y, which is 4 over x, plus y squared, so 4 over x squared, and if you multiply those, we get 12x divided by x, so that's 12. This would be 16 over x squared. Thoughts?
Factor out an x squared. Oh wait, no, you can't.
So I agree we should do something with that x squared. Do you guys want to keep the fraction or do you want to get rid of it? So we could get rid of it if we multiply everything by x squared. And if we set it equal to 0, okay. X so
Negative 8, negative 2x squared minus 8x squared minus 2.
okay, so if I set those equal to 0, we get x squared equals 8, and x squared equals 2. Then we have to square root plus and minus. So square root of 8 is into 4 and 2, so that's plus and minus 2 radical 2. This one, we get plus and minus the square root of 2. All right. That was a lot longer, wasn't it? We have x. How many different x's do I have right now? 4. So we have a 2 radical 2. We can find the y. We have a negative 2 radical 2. Positive radical 2. And negative radical 2. So I currently have at least 4 points. I could get more if when I plug those in I got plus and minuses on my y as well. The fastest way to get my y, we could go back to the original, but we also already know y is 4 divided by x. So if I put in a positive 2 radical 2, y would be 4 over 2 radical 2. Get your radical off the bottom. And we just get radical 2. If I made it a negative 2 radical 2.
-4 radical 2 over 2.
It's would be over 4, right? Or you could think if you reduce first, this is -2 over the square root of 2. So then if you multiply by your radical, that's where I got just the radical 2. Everybody with me there? Do I need to show you how I got those y's again? If I put in a positive square root of 2, y is 4 over the square root of 2. So you get your radical off the bottom. You get 2 radical 2. And if I made it a negative square root of 2, we get
Are you sure you still know it was playing out like this?
so this one did because it was both the x squared and the y squared. So it's not uncommon, but it's also not a guarantee. So sometimes they will,
So it's like 50.
so don't just assume it, but don't be surprised if it happens.
I feel like if I were doing the test, I could get
You won't be doing this to us a lot, will you?
What?
first.
I only have 15 of them for homework.
How many of these long ones?
Let's look at some more.
Oh, Lord.
Blue Valley.
Yeah, why not?
Yeah, if I start feeling next one.
Well, there goes my college dreams.
You guys give up too easily.
Hey,
Need a little more
it's-
challenge in your life.
It's a Wednesday morning and it is
Could
a high
you-
for someone.
Probably substitution, just subtract over the absolute value of x.
Okay, so I think, yes, substitution is the way to go. So we have two options. We can solve for the y, or we can solve for the absolute value. It might be easier to solve for the absolute value than just because I have it by itself and I don't have it on the other side with another term. Now, what does absolute value do?
It turns everything positive.
Okay. We are trying to use this to replace our x. We know all the absolute value does is takes your number and makes it positive. When you square something, what kind of number do you get?
Positive.
Positive. Does it matter if x is positive or negative before we square it? No, it will turn out to be the same thing. So because of this square, and only because of that square, it's okay to replace my x with the absolute value of x. Because I know all that absolute value does is make it positive. Once I square, it's positive anyway, so it does not matter.
So if it wasn't squared, it would automatically have to be. And how would
We would have to, if it were like an x cubed, we would have to have a different approach for solving it.
So we
Are
probably
we
want to
going-
solve for y.
Yeah, probably. So you will most likely not have one of those right now. But yes, it would be easier to solve for y probably in that case. All right, what would we do here?
probably do the multiplication
Foil.
of the square?
Yes, we want to square that, we have to FOIL. So we get 16 minus 8y plus y squared plus y squared is 16. Combine like terms, so we have a 2y squared minus 8y. If I subtract my 16 over, those actually cancel. So we could take out a 2y. So we get y equals 0 and y equals 4. Okay. So now we have to plug these back in. We can do either equation. So, do you want to solve an absolute value equation, or would you rather do the equation with the x squared in it? We'll get the same answers, as long as you remember how to solve your absolute values. So if we do the absolute value one, we get the absolute value of x equals 4 minus 0. So the absolute value of x equals 4. So what can x be?
4.
Or
Negative 4.
negative 4. Because remember when we did absolute value equations, you had to set it equal to the positive and the negative. The number inside the absolute value could be either. So if I put in a 4, we get the absolute value of x equals 4 minus 4. The absolute value of x equals 0, so what is x?
Is 0.
How many points did we end up with? 3. Tell me one of them. 4, 0. Next one,
Negative 4, 0.
and the last one.
4, 0. 4, 0.
0, 4.
Yeah.
Alright. Why don't you guys try a problem? Eliminate.
I eliminated the 4.
I eliminated the y.
Okay. We can go either way. So if I do that, we have negative 4x squared minus 4y squared equals negative 20. If you multiply by negative 3, that's also fine. You could have done a substitution, solve for your y squared, and that's also fine. So just if you started a different way, it doesn't mean you were wrong. Those cancel. This would be a negative y squared equals negative 9.
Yours solves so much more easily.
So y
Yeah.
squared equals 9. Then to get rid of a square, we
Square root and then plus or minus 3.
so y is positive or negative 3.
I told you mine was smooth sailing.
Yours is
What's
so
your-
much more pretty. Why is mine plus and minus 2y?
Well, let's see. If I plug in a 3, we get x squared plus 3 squared equals 5. 3 squared is 9. Subtract our 9, so x squared is negative 4. Square root plus or minus, what's the square root of negative 4?
2y.
Yeah, that's where it was. I forgot about the negative, but I still did my plus or minus.
So if we put in negative 3, we should get the same thing. Negative 3 squared is 9. So x squared is negative 4. Square root plus or minus, so we get plus and minus.
See, I was just
That's good, pretty.
If you had gotten
I
the
was just
2y
wondering.
and you had to plug it back in, you would have 2i squared plus y squared equals 5. That turns into 4i squared, which is negative 4. And so then you would solve it from there and get the same thing. So you weren't wrong. So our answers, how many did we get?
I got
4. We have 2i, positive 3, negative 2i, positive 3, 2i, negative 3, and negative 2i, negative
See, I was doing answers. I just
3. Just forgot that.
See, I know what I was doing.
Do we need to do more problems? So now there is a handout to post it on Classroom
Lovely.
for you to work.